everybody, and welcome to another episode of Lighten Up Zen Life. It is 9 p.m. Do you know where your Buddha Master is? I do. On the phone with me, everyone say hi to Nancy. Nancy, say hi to everyone.
Hello, everyone.
Tonight, our subject is about expectations. Some people say expectations are good. We should know what to expect from others, or expect to know certain information, or we should have certain expectations in relationships. Others say that expectations are something that we should not have. It allows us to be unconditionally loving, open-hearted, and not disappointed. It's not about right or wrong. It's just about opening this subject up and bringing it into light and discussion. Nancy, would you like to weigh in on it?
You want to start?
I was going to say, do you want to start?
Do you want to start? No. I think, there's an idea of an expectation, and then there's an opinion that goes along with the expectation, and there's a judgment that often goes along with the expectation. And the expectation is something that we, can you look at towards an expectation, in a way that'll give you an idea of how something's going to work? Maybe, maybe not. Because the problem with an expectation is it's the view from the outside world. It's the outside world, expecting the outside world to be, in our grasp, in our control, in our idea of the way things should be. Yes. And I think, if anything, a lot of people are finding out that's not exactly what's happening. And,
correct.
A lot of people have an expectation of politics. A lot of people have an expectation of the way life should be, an expectation that they cannot. The expectation can be that there's going to be, the bomb's going to drop on us. The expectation can be that I can't do anything, I can't get anything right. The expectation can be, life always happens to me, and it always sort of leaves me flat. There's a lot of different angles to the expectation issue, but each one of those expectations are a view from the outside world, not the inside world.
Yes. In my experience, these three things, when we discussed speaking about expectations tonight, I had three big ideas that I wanted to convey. The first was judgment. Every time we cast judgment on another, some way, shape, or form, it comes back to ourselves. Either we recognize it because it's something that we've done in a past life, it's something that we are doing in this life, it's something on the interior of us, a belief system, construct, that sticks out to me. So it's really careful to be mindful about the role of judgment in our expectations. The second thing was that a while ago, I was in a situation that was a little tricky for myself. And what Nancy clarified for me was that the person I was feeling kerfuffled about, they're not here for me. They weren't put on the planet for my happiness, my joy, how I see things, what I want, how I want it. They're here for their own story, their own life path, their own journey. And what their journey is doesn't have anything to do with me. And that was a really important lesson for me to learn. And it turned me into a very hands-off person, where I learned about alignment and resonance, that if the person or people is in alignment and resonance with you, the relationship is going to flow easy. The other, if they're not in resonance with you, you're not going to be on the same page. But I think it showed me the need to step out of the desire to control. We don't need to control people to be what we want them to be or do what they want to do. We just let them be themselves and see how we line up to that. And the third thing was that I noticed in a lot of situations where expectations came to light, that expectations can often lead to conflict, heartbreak, or disappointment. We had an expectation, something that we wanted, and we didn't get it our way, or we had expectations from somebody else. Like, I had an experience yesterday when I was when I was working with someone else, and they were talking to another person, and they were not seeing eye to eye. And because I was the observer in the situation, I saw where they were not seeing eye to eye, but it's because they had different expectations of each other. One wanted one to focus more on what they wanted, the other one wanted them to focus more on what the other person wanted, and they were kind of feeling a little egoic about it. And my takeaway at the end, after both parties had asked me what my opinion was, I said, well, you showed up to the same party with different wants. And if you could understand the wants that each other had, and if you had the same wants, then it would flow. But because you have different wants, it's not really flowing so hot. You should find different people to express your wants with. And that, yeah, so I feel like, in some manifestation experiences, some people will say, know what you're wanting, know what you're expecting, and expect it to happen for you. So then it's not the expectation, it's the resistance that our thoughts or belief systems could introduce or interject into the expectation. So those were my big feelings on it. And I know that was a lot of different directions all at a quick time. But to me, those are some big pieces to expectations I'd like to explore tonight.
Okay. There's a difference between observing something. I just had a client today that she was mentioning, she works for a company, a well-known company, and there's some new people coming in, and she made a comment, like, understand too, I'm working with her, trying to get her to not have expectations. So, but anyway, the deal was she had some ideas whether they were going to be, the new people were going to be good, they have a lot of potential and so on. That sounds like a very positive thing. But behind that is probably more of an issue than how are they going to affect me?
Mm-hmm.
I think we forget that when we have an expectation, if everybody just behaves, if everyone just does all this wonderful stuff, then I'll be fine.
Right.
And she was not a person who was in charge of any of them. She wasn't a manager. She wasn't a hiring person. So it wasn't someone who was looking at whether the person was going to succeed or not succeed. She had been there a long time. And I think once we discussed it, she understood that, and she admitted that it was more about how are these new people going to affect me.
Right.
And so, so we have this opportunity to sit here and do judgment, and as you mentioned, mm-hmm. And we have an opportunity to have an expectation of others, but we also have expectations of ourselves.
That's
and
right.
Those are usually started, a lot of times it started in childhood. And we're told, or we have a sibling, or we have someone who does something, that excels, and we have to, we feel we're in competition with that. And maybe they get a lot of praise for what they do, and the expectation is, or it could be an expectation that someone's going to react in a certain way. That person's never going to change, or that person is always going to do this, or I expect this person to come against me. I expect they're going to say mean things about me because they've done it in the past, or I expect they're going to be my best friend, and they turned out to be less than that. So expectations are an assumption, and it's based in something usually of the past. Mm-hmm. Or it's based in some other, it could be about one person, and that person reminds me of that other person, and so therefore I expect them to do the same thing. I think a lot of times in siblings, we have expectations that, if the oldest child succeeded, or if the oldest child did wondrous things, that the other kids have to live up to it. Mm-hmm. And they have expectations put in place on them, or they place them on themselves. So basically, expectations can be, I suppose in some way it can be a little bit healthy in the sense that it might set a goal of some sort. But to believe that I have to be something because someone else thinks that, or I think that, and I expect others to be something that they're not, really going to be, or don't want to be, or can't be, or not supposed to be, So expectations, there's an automatic expectation socially that you're supposed to, when you are a certain age, you're supposed to be successful.
Yes.
When you reach that age, man, you should be at the top of the, whatever you're here to do. And a lot of people right now are going through a big change, and they're finding themselves totally changing. And whatever they did in the past and were successful at, they're sitting there going, "What do I do next? How am I going to do? What am I supposed to be doing?" And there's an expectation. I should know that. I shouldn't know. We got to get used to not knowing. Not knowing is in the now, and not knowing means that I don't have a strong conflict with, I'm open to be in the now and let things unfold. Expectation is that it can stir up the addictions to, I have to do this or I'm a failure. And it's the same thing in politics. If you have to like one president or the next in our country, you're either for one or you're not, or you're not, or you're either from the other one or one of the two. What about if you're not for either one of them? Or what if you're for both of them?
Yeah.
And it's so interesting how many times we're placed in a situation where we're forced into a decision, we're forced into an attitude, we're forced into something. And we have expectations placed on us, or we're placing expectations on others or other things, and so on. So it can cause a lot of drama. A lot of people go into depression because of it.
That's what
They're
Val
not
was
living
just
up
saying.
to expectations. A lot of people go into different illnesses and so on. Competition. A lot of people, it stirs up people to move forward in awkward ways, sometimes because of someone else's expectation of them or their own expectation of themselves. So they're not based in reality all the time. They're based in a belief system. They're based in something that's been placed on someone. And the expectation is it doesn't, if you didn't take it too seriously, if you had an expectation that this might be a really good job, and then be open-minded and let it unfold before you made your final decision. I mean, it doesn't mean that all expectations have to end in terrible things. But if you're really around it, this expectation has got to be about me, and it's got to be my way, and it's got to be in my control, and so on, then it's going to cause a problem. It's going to cause pain and hurt. So my expectation may be totally different than someone else's. Maybe they thought one thing, this job meant one thing, and I expect you to do this. And if it weren't clarified and understood, then I may take a whole different angle to it and not meet their expectations and not have the job work out for me. Or a person that's interviewing someone may explain what their expectations are, or maybe they're not. Maybe they're hiding it and they want to see if that person just shows up for it. So it's very, it's a big topic, but it's all about the outside, and it's about assumptions, in my
opinion. There's three things I wanted to add into this. You had sparked off my mind with some of the things that we had said to something that I actually just shared with my shadow work and surrender crew. So the first thing is I have a spaceship tattooed to my wrist, and it was something I learned with Nancy about, we all beings come in from all different places and in our multiverse, and we put on the same human exterior, but we don't all come from the same place. So I started really thinking about that. My inspiration in that was, well, actually, let me backtrack a little bit. Astrology, when I first started learning about astrology, that was the first venue I had to being much more compassionate and hospitable to people's differences. And you're a Virgo, you like it this way. You're Scorpio, you like it that way. Oh, that makes sense. That makes sense why you're different than me. Okay, that was a good introductory step. And it was a good platform for me to expand into the things that I learned with Nancy or other places on my own. And the spaceship made sense to me because we all do come from different places. So when we can't see eye to eye with someone, it doesn't mean that I'm wrong or right, or that the other person is wrong or right. We have an independent person. We have an independent life story. We have an independent soul. Even though we're all part of the oneness, we don't know what people incarnate to learn while they're here. And loving somebody doesn't have to mean tolerating behavior that is harmful to us. Loving somebody, I feel, is to hold them in a place of love while holding yourself in a place of love. And often when I address these subjects with Nancy, she would be my reminder. If something upset me, she'd go, did you put it in light? Did you put it in love? Did you bring the love in? Did you ask the higher realms? Yes, okay, cool. And it became a habit for me saying something to her, then me asking her about it, put it in the higher realms. And that's where, and the habit, the knee-jerk reaction came. Experience something in the physical. If it didn't feel great, go to the higher realms. Experience something in the physical. If it felt great, thank the higher realms. If you experience something in the physical and it was heavy, ask the higher realms to help you out. The knee-jerk reaction was always go to the higher realm to navigate this reality. And I just put that out there, that we all have a different something that paints the pictures that we see. We're not a cookie cutter individual. So as far as the things that I'd like to introduce to you, there's 2 tools, and you can get a notebook, you could write it down, you could think about it and come back and watch the podcast, entirely up to you. I am a communications major from college, and I have these notebooks here with notes in them. The first, I wanted to cover the 6 stages of listening, and then also the 6 selves of when you're in a conversation. The 6 selves in any given conversation is the you, the other, what you think of the other, what they think of you, what do you think the other thinks of you, and what do you think the other thinks of him or her. So this stuff is always going on when we're having a conversation with someone, and some person might think more of one more than the other, and we don't know what somebody's interior wounds or belief systems are. If they don't feel worthy, they may be more defensive. If they struggle to see their value, they may be more thinking about what you might think of them badly, and they might be more kind as a compensation. And everybody has this kind of inner world that they bring to the table when they connect with another person. So that's one. The second thing is the stages of listening. A lot of times when we listen, it's until I didn't know these things until I got schooled on them. We first have to hear it, paying careful attention to what is being said. Then we have to understand it, comprehend the message. Then can we remember it? Are we able to recall what the message was that was given? Then we have respond to it, which is a reply or letting others know that you're paying attention to them. Evaluate, not passing judgment, but just evaluating the sum. And then interpreting the message. So interpreting the message that they give. So when we take judgment or fear out of the equation, we have a much smoother experience with communicating, and then we will have a better time navigating through expectations, whether that's expectations that we say, hey, listen, this is who I am, here's what my expectations are, or if we say, I'm actually not big on expectations, that's not the world I want to live in. Nance?
Yeah.
Hi.
Hi.
I thought those were good things to share. They helped me learn a lot about in communicating with others.
Yeah, and communication is always the name of the game. A lot of people don't understand what each other's expectation is, and it's not communicated. I think you can save a lot of problems, and like what you were just reading, you can save a lot of problems when you have open, your expectations are open and discussed.
Absolutely.
If you were going to get into a relationship, a romantic relationship, and after a certain period of time, if it started getting more serious, then you would want to have some clue of what the other person's expectations are and they yours. So expectations again doesn't mean it's written in ink.
Yeah.
Because you're going to change in a relationship. You're going to change. There's going to be time. The more time you spend, you're going to change, and you're going to change anyway. So to have an expectation and have it, and submit is not a good idea, because, you can say, right now, my expectation is, right where I'm at, this is my expectation. I'd like to have someone who's honest. I'd like to have someone who cares. I want someone who does their part, and, is this and that, or whatever the case might be. So you can sit there and in the next, maybe a week from then, you would have a different expectation.
That's right.
Maybe the person reveals himself, and then, it draws up another expectation that you didn't even think about. And expectations, again, they're going to be changing. They're going to be either valid or invalid. Doesn't mean that all expectations are not valid, but some of them are. But they're still assumptions, and we expect everyone, like you just said, we expect everyone to behave in the same way that we think they should be. And if they don't do that, then we're disappointed. If the end result is disappointment from your expectation, then you had a idea that wasn't realistic.
Yes.
Let's say we expect someone to be nice. Let's say we date someone, we expect them to be respectful. When they weren't brought up that way, and they didn't have the mentoring, and they aren't that way, then they don't have to match my expectation. But it doesn't mean I have to let go of my expectation either. I just can't expect someone to do something that's not in their level of understanding or doing.
I agree with that. I like how you had brought up this point about self-awareness, because a lot of times, and I noticed this, and I think you do too, Nancy. I mean, I've definitely experienced it as your student. People are not aware of themselves, and when we're not aware of ourselves, or we didn't dive into the corridors of our own person, we may have a gap or a spot, like a shadow spot, that we don't know ourselves to be in, and that comes out again in a projection or in communication or our expectations that we have of others. And the other great point you had said was about assumption, assuming that someone will do something. We all have different types of an upbringing, different types of ways that we're raised, belief systems. We have family that comes from all over the world. They raise us a certain way. And then, if we are not open-minded or taught to be open-minded, like I heard this great thing earlier that said a child that is judged can grow up to be an adult who judges, because that's what they're taught through action. They've been on the receiving end, and even if it hurts them, they will grow up to kind of mirror that behavior, unless they make a conscious decision to alter. But the unconscious might initially be that they are judgmental towards others for being so heavily judged themselves. It's not always that way, but it made me, if I was like, wow, that's a really good point, that we tend to, I don't want to make a generalization out of it, but when we go through things as children, we may do or replicate those things until we learn better not to. And relationships are a huge place where we learn to be a different type of person. Our romantic relationships, our friendships, the people that we meet in life, they open our eyes to show us different aspects of ourselves, which may not be developed or showcased or even brought into our awareness as children or while we're growing up. These external situations help us to become clear on who we are. So I feel like it's such an asset to, before we get crumpled up with someone else, if we had an expectation and it wasn't met, or something's going on outside of us and it didn't go how we wanted, before we go snapping at the other person, I think it would be super beneficial to you to go, well, why did that bother me to begin with? What did I want there? What did I overlay on this situation thinking this or that would come out of it? And there's this great poem from Oriah Mountain Dreamer called Invitation. And one of the lines is, can you betray another to be true to yourself? And that's, I feel like, a great moral question, because when we're judging other people, there is this and hopefully we minimize that habit, but there's this idea of who they're supposed to be to us. We see certain relationships come to an end. This person lied, or this person cheated, or this person wasn't nice, or this parent or this sibling. And the reality is that what do they owe us? What, they wanted something. Maybe they didn't know how to express to us what we wanted. Maybe they were afraid to hurt us. Why do people do what they do? And how do we develop compassion for what people do at any given time without the need to be harshly judgmental to them? Do you get what I'm saying, Nancy?
I think so.
Okay. What's your feedback on that?
Well, I think, again, the better I know myself, the better I will understand myself. And the more honest I am with, again, they say, become the person if you're looking for someone in a relationship, be it friend or romantic or whatever the case might be, if you are looking for someone, to become the person you're looking for.
That's right. Val,
huh?
I'm sorry. I was going to say, Val asked a question to you. What if there's underlying issues that we are not aware of?
You're going to have to, this is where expectations get into trouble, is that there's a difference between when you know someone and you don't. I mean, there's always in the beginning, you don't know the hidden shadows, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
And people don't, and a lot of times we don't even know ourselves. We didn't know that was going to trigger us. Man, that is a big trigger. I didn't know that.
Right.
I didn't know that about me. Well, the better you know, and the better you are who you want to be and need to be, the more you're going to be able to attract someone who's got very similar characteristics.
Yeah.
So, the expectation is something that, it's a risk. It's iffy, maybe, it doesn't, not everybody's expectation goes down the drain, but at the same time, to have, to want people to be your version of who you want them to be, they may have started out that way. A lot of people are one way when you first meet them, and then, other things turn up later, and so on. So what happens when you have someone who is now changed and so on, you make a decision whether how important is that change to you. I think one of the main explanations or the main expectations are that person will never change, or this person has to be this way now and they'll never change. Well, we're all changing, and we're all waking up, and we're all going to be different. So to have an expectation that this has to, in time, we put time in our expectations. If this person isn't right by this time, I'm out of here. Or I'm going to give this person so much time, and they're going to keep doing the same thing to hurt and abuse me, and I know they'll change someday. No, you don't know. You don't know. You don't necessarily know. And to the expectations are something that is a make-believe. This is the way it should be, or this is the way it is, or this is the way it's going to become. And you take the risk.
Mm-hmm. I like the conversation we had last night, Nance, or yesterday. We were talking about alignment, and you had this great gem. I wrote it down to make sure I could share it tonight. You said, you're not in alignment if your heart is feeling one way, but the outer parts of you are running in opposite directions. You have to get back to center. And I thought that was so good. And it really puts this clarity to alignment, because you say, okay, well, my heart feels this energy, this feeling. An example of it could be a relationship dynamic where your heart loves that person and just is in the space of love with no condition, no judgment, no nothing. But then if you have a belief system in your head about the same person, the same relationship that doesn't match the energy of your heart, you're not going to be in alignment. And to the point that Nancy was sharing with me, we were saying, one thing that I thought was a gem out of it as well to kind of follow in is when we do something with someone else, we try to have a conversation, or we try to work with them, communicate with them. and not realizing sometimes that we're really trying to satisfy ourselves. We convince ourselves, or it's easy to say to ourselves, I'm trying to do this, that, the other for the greater good. And then when you actually write out, and I would recommend this, any kind of feelings that you may have, if you write them out towards any person, place, or thing, when you, before you have the conversation with them, and say, well, how much of this conversation is really geared towards them, and how much is it geared towards me? Through writing out your feelings or what you'd like to say, you can get a lot of clarity. So, I did the exercise yesterday and I brought it to Nancy, and a lot of the conversation, even though I meant well, was about me comforting my own feelings and seeing that there was a need to comfort my feelings in that relational dynamic. It was like, oh, wow, that's really interesting how this was me comforting me, rather than me creating any headway. And then again, bring it to the higher realms, let it be prayed for and prayed over, and let that be handled. And then you release it, and you're liberated from walking around with the weight of that interaction or belief system.
I think it goes right back to be it expectations or whatever we're talking about. Is if I'm going to have expectations, I'm going to probably put them on myself. Mm-hmm. My expectation is I'm going to be happy, I'm going to be comfortable, I'm going to be a good person, I'm going to be a good partner, I'm going to listen, be a good listener, I'm not going to erupt, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, and that's what I expect to achieve. But that's a whole different, again, that's what I expect to achieve, puts it in future tense, that, and we're naming, I really need to pay attention to myself. I need to pay attention to why I'm feeling the way. It's my expectation because my parents say so. There's a lot of cultures where the parents pick the partners and so on, and they have an expectation to that person, their child, to marry somebody or to do something that is for the highest good for the family and so on.
Yeah.
There's all kinds of expectations that are placed on us. But the person who's going to make that decision, the bottom line person, now I have to do what my parents say. It's a cultural thing. And if I don't, then I'm not going to inherit whatever. These are all big decisions that we have to make.
Yeah.
I'm just using that as an example. My parents don't like this person. My family does not like this person. I mean, you can go the opposite direction, where, who you chose is not necessarily someone that they like. Well, they're not the one that's going to be involved with them. But they still put an expectation that, you really need to listen to us. We know best. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. So it takes every day decisions to make a choice. And you got to be vigorous, honest with yourself, and you've got to be a person who is, wanting the very highest level and is willing to go into the higher level to find out what the answer is, and then whether you want to do it or not.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, I think that when we have a lot of expectations on ourselves, it becomes easy to get self-critical. And then also, if we're not careful, that self-criticism, if we don't live up to our own vision or desire for who we want from ourselves to be, we can begin to internalize irritability or self-anger. And then we don't realize that could be a magnet that we then bring other things in.
What do you, I'm going to put this back in your lap again, Teresa. What do you think that most people do the self expectation on? What do you think that they place on themselves? What is the most common kinds of things that they place on themselves, and why would they do that?
A lot of the conversations I have between myself, my students, people that I know, are they want to live up to, I want to be worthy of, I want to be a good person, I want to be successful, I want to be financially secure.
What defines success?
Exactly. Success.
No, I'm asking you. What defines success?
Success to me is, are you happy, healthy, and secure with where you're at?
Well, that's your definition.
That's my definition. But
you know what success is defined as? I'm going to tell you, so you don't have to keep going. You don't have to keep going down the other line.
You could. I mean, I looked it up in the dictionary, but go ahead.
What did you find?
I'm trying to remember what the verbiage was for it. It was something like achievement, a status of some sort, but they also had an underlying thing where it wasn't just about the money that was accrued. It's also of like, if you were happy, you were successful, and how success was interpreted.
When you're successful, it should be easy. Easy and successful or success are the same thing. When you're in alignment, when you're doing the thing that makes you happy, and when you're doing success, it's a situation where it's easy. When it doesn't get easy, it changes, where you have to have a different idea of what success is. Well, I overcame this. It was really hard, but I stuck in there and I learned my lessons and I overcame it. It changes it.
Mm.
You're always changing.
Can we talk more about how success and easy are synonymous?
Well, when you're successful, you're a good salesperson, or you know what to do, and you accomplish it, and you have people recognize your gift, and you have I don't know if fame is the right word for some people, but you have it's understood. You made it possible for others to succeed too, and it turns out to be easy.
Mm-hmm.
When you have to strive and strive and strive, there's usually worry and stress and fear and all other things come in, and it's much harder to understand. It's very hard to get that to happen. So if I have an expectation, I have to meet a certain goal. Usually companies put it, like a lot of times in sales or something, they put a certain mark on what people have to make each year. Well, every year that changes. I mean, every year, you have a year like this where we're going into now. I mean, it's a whole different ballgame. So success would be I can adapt, I can be flexible, I can figure it out.
Agreed. I agree with you. The definition, Nancy, that I saw, I just grabbed it, was the accomplishment of an aim or purpose. Just like you said, you can easily accomplish something.
Okay. Yeah. And accomplishment means, okay, as soon as you accomplish it, then you're going to have a new goal.
Yes, yes.
Because as soon as you make that mark and you accomplish it, then something else comes in, and then you again, it's about communication. It's about being flexible. It's about not being, going in and asking for help from the higher levels to give you ideas of what you want to do and so on. And do I have an expectation? Let's say the difference that my faith is my expectation that if I'm in alignment, that the higher levels are going to help me.
Yeah.
I don't have a problem with having an expectation of I don't expect them to do it. I think they're a gift. I think they do it because that's who they are.
Mm.
I think, the person that I was talking to this morning, when I was trying to get them to look at it and know that the only reason that they cared what the other people were going to be easy or good or not good is because they were concerned about how they were going to get along with them.
Denise has a question for you, Nancy. She says, how do you handle someone that puts you down every time you talk to them? A family member, for instance.
You don't talk to them. You can be there, but don't talk to them.
She said,
and why, I don't know if it's a sibling or a parent or who, but, why would they have to put you down? I mean, why would they do that? The only person who would do that is somebody who's unhappy or not in a good mood or angry or whatever the case might be, or confused or drugs or this or that. Why would anybody do that? Well, they do it all the time, but people who do that, you don't have to participate.
Right.
I don't care if it's a family or a friend or whatever. That doesn't mean you have to not come to a family breakfast. That just means you don't have to try to convince them. You don't have to try to do anything. You don't have an expectation. What your job is to convince them.
Yes, yes. You have value regardless of whether, someone else thinks whatever. It's only, in my
Well,
opinion.
nobody has the right. I mean, the only reason why people are mean to someone else is because they feel angry, and they're mean because they feel mean.
Yes.
And they have to take it out on somebody.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, why would I want to spend my time doing that? Just because they're a family member doesn't give them the right to abuse.
That's right. Absolutely.
And then people don't know that because they feel more online to do that with families or someone they're close to, good friends. The closer the person is to you, the more relaxed they are about doing something like that.
That's true.
A lot of people would never do that to a stranger.
Yeah.
Because they care what they think. But the difference is that they don't care what that person thinks.
Yeah, we tend to be more comfortable. It's usually, and if there is some type of like abusive situation, it usually is from somebody you know more than somebody you don't know.
Well, and why are they doing it? To prove themselves that they are better than the person, to be elite. Do they think they're doing that to help the person so that they'll change and do it their way, and they can, they think their way is the right way. They think they're right. I mean, why are they doing it?
That's what I like. I like the questions where it's like, just as you said, if the person is saying something derogatory to you, I like to ask questions that help me understand their perspective. Why did you say that? What makes you think that way?
Let me finish this before I forget it. Is that okay?
Yeah, absolutely.
Can I interrupt you just for a minute?
Sure, absolutely.
The idea is not to take it seriously.
Yes, yes.
The idea is to just look at the person and let it go, because they're not in the right mind. They're not in alignment. The best thing to do is not let it sink in. And, it hurts because they're my this, and because we have an expectation what parents are supposed to be, what siblings are supposed to be, what husband and wives are supposed to be. And they're supposed to be loving and caring and so on and da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Well, not always.
That's true.
Not always. It's just the way it is. And, and it's not something I am obligated to take in personally. If someone's saying something really mean and abusive, and they're trying to put me down or do this or that, okay, go for it. I don't have to take it seriously. And that takes practice. What I'm talking about takes practice. Mm-hmm. It takes you have to understand that people have all kinds of they have entities, they have all kinds of stuff going on. I am not responsible for what they say, and I'm not responsible to take it in. And I'll tell you who's really good at what I'm talking about is Tom Singer.
Michael Singer?
He's on Michael Singer. He's on YouTube, and he's probably he's very, very good at teaching this, how not to take things. So is Alan Watts. And there's a lot of people on YouTube that do a really good job on not taking abuse seriously. I mean, we're talking about the kind of verbal abuse, or being, someone putting them down or doing something like that. Don't show up. Stop going to breakfast.
Yeah. There's two things that just came to me out of what we were discussing there. You had mentioned it. One is, okay, there was two scenarios that pinged up in my head. One is I was talking to a woman, was giving me feedback about her relationship. She said, I have expectations for my husband, and I have a positive view of expectations. I tell him what I will and won't tolerate, what I want, what I don't want, and that if he doesn't live up to what I expect from him, we will get a divorce. And I said, wow, that feels really harsh.
Well, I don't know. I don't know if it's harsh or not. I don't know that that's harsh. Wait a minute. It's called setting boundaries.
Yes.
Now, where the expectation comes in is that person's going to follow and have the same boundaries and same idea about boundaries, and that person's going to follow those expectations. Right.
So that was what I had arrived to with this person having this discussion, was saying, a little harsh in that it's easier to navigate a relationship when the person inherently has the same values as you, and it's harder if it feels like they have to swim upstream to meet you. And
maybe they don't understand. I mean, if it's a true relationship, if it's a male-female relationship, the male really wants to please the female.
That's true.
But if the male's on our masculine side, then it becomes competition.
Yes. Female.
And then because two men fighting, two men telling each other what to do, and so on. So again, communication is a very important factor in this. And if she's in that mode where it's this or nothing, and he keeps doing it, then she has the right to leave.
Right.
But it doesn't mean you demean the other person because they don't have your values. I don't know what she's talking about. It could be, if it's something serious, then that's a different story.
Right. Well, I mean, it was really like, it was a discussion over friends, what their expectations were about him being allowed to have female friends or not, and versus not. What were his parameters?
Those are things that you discuss and you work out in your relationship.
Right.
Wait a minute, Teresa, just hang on a minute. The difference is there are two some people say three. There's a couple genders, and half of the population are men, half of the population are females. And if she's got a reason why she doesn't want him talking to a female or, associating with females, then that's her right. But at the same time, he doesn't have to accept it.
Yes.
And if he doesn't, she has a right to take a stand by leaving or doing whatever she wants to do.
Right. That's what I'm saying. Harmony and shared values rather than having to become someone in order to make it work. Yeah. All things flow when there's willingness to be that way, or a shared value in being that way. And it won't work if there's not a shared appreciation for it. The other thing that you had mentioned.
No, wait a minute. Before you go on, I want to go to something else on the same subject. Is that all right?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. We have a right to change and have our own opinion. We have a right to set up boundaries. We have the right to have, if I married someone and I thought they were the nice person and they ended up being criminal and they ended up being a lot of different things, I had an expectation they were good. I have to recognize that my expectations and my thinking wasn't accurate.
Yes.
I have to be vigorously honest. Or if I'm doing something, I have to be willing to do whatever I'm asking of someone else. I have to be willing to be that person myself.
Yes.
So if I'm saying, you should never lie, don't lie to me, and then I'm doing lies myself, then you're just getting back what you just caught. It's cause and effect. It's your whatever you think. If you're negative and negative and negative all the time, and that person's not being very nice to you, you have to understand you're contributing to it.
That's right. Yeah. These are the ways that we take our power back when we become sovereign and self-identified.
Yeah. I don't think expectations have to be negative. I think expectations can be, but I think we've got to be vigorously honest. I had unfair expectations of this situation. It's okay. I learned from it. I'm not going to do that again.
Yes. I agree. And the same thing.
I had expectations that my math class wasn't going to be as hard as it was. So I got a decision to make. Do I learn to do the math, or do I find I don't need it and back off and don't take the stress from it?
Right. Denise says, it's a little harder when you're older and changing. People don't know how to react to you. She meant it's a little harder when you're older and changing. People don't know how to react to you.
Denise, I've been having, this has been my face here in the last while. Everything seems to be about age. In fact, even tonight happened. I don't care if they understand me anymore. I used to care about things, but I don't care anymore. If they don't understand, a lot of people expect, again, they have an expectation what older people are like. They have an expectation that when you're a certain age that you're going to act that age. I don't act or look my age.
Well,
But
you're
I don't want
28.
to, but everybody keeps pushing age into my face lately. It's been one of the, even the TV shows I've been having that when you reach a certain age, then you don't have the same, there's a movie out, The Showgirl, The Last Showgirl, and it's about, not being beautiful and being amazing. And all of a sudden, at a certain age, they don't have the same chance and they're not recognized in the same way. Well, okay. But that's because people have expectations and they have concepts and they have assumptions. Define them. Be defiant.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm tired of hearing people talk about age. Personally, I personally like agelessness myself, but people can do whatever they want, and it's just coming up every time I turn around. It's coming up in my, around me. And people are very aware of aging and ageless. Our presidents are aging and so on. I mean, if I were, I'm just using the past president, being accused of not remembering things. Do you know how many things the person has to remember and how many different departments and how many different aspects they have to remember? I'm having a hard time remembering my address. Not really, but, do you know what I mean? There's reasons why you have trouble remembering certain things.
Yeah, it's a lot
but
of responsibility.
that doesn't mean you're living up to somebody else's idea.
Right. The other thing, Nance, was that the idea of self, you had mentioned about our parents having an idea. Parents should love their children. Spouses should act this way. Children should act this way. We create an idea in our head. And this is why I began the podcast with expectations. It's not about right or wrong. It's about just breaking open the subject, because if there's any takeaway from this podcast tonight, is that there is an expectation of, like, it's clear to have the expectation. Why do we have it? That's based on a value system, and it's important to respect your values and what you love. And then on the other side of it, we create expectations, but where's the underlying idea for that expectation of yourself or others rooted in? And that is that's, I think, a good takeaway for tonight.
One of the things that's going to have expectations, there's one thing that absolutely will have expectations that are unreasonable or different aspects to it. It's called the ego. It's called the ego. The ego has a lot of expectations. And the matrix and the computer program and all the stuff where that's its job, is to create expectations so that people are getting disappointed and fearful.
Right.
So, I mean, it all depends. If you can be flexible, if you have an expectation, that doesn't mean you're doing something wrong. It just means it may not happen.
Denise says, I'm tired of being told to act my age. My answer is always no. Why should I?
Well, I think you should act whatever age you want.
Yeah. Well, act ageless, like you said.
Yeah, I mean, Denise, be whoever you want. I mean, I don't, everybody wants you to act your age. Why would that be? It's that they want to control you, or they think that you should not be fun and have a great time and be, youthful and so forth. I mean, if we care about the outside and what people think of us, you're never going to win that battle, because they're always going to come up with something else.
Right. Nilda says, age is just a number. It is how you feel. And Denise says, and I hate when someone says, I expect better from you. And then Nilda,
that's an interesting thing.
Yeah.
I expect better for you as long as you do what I say.
Yes.
So better for you, I expect you to do what I say. And if you don't, then I'm disappointed.
Yeah.
Or let's put it into lessons. I expect you to know all your lessons ahead of time. And you can't experiment with lessons and learning them, or heaven forbid that you would go through lessons to learn or do something with it. And so I expect more out of you. I expect better out of you. Really?
Mm-hmm. Nancy,
okay.
Val says, please let Nancy know that I've been replaying the bit from the last show over and over again, and it really helped. Thank you again to the both of you.
You're welcome. Glad it helped. One thing happens, again, the only thing that happens when someone helps, so-called helps, it just expedites the situation. You learn faster to, the reason it helped is because you got through it faster than you would have if we hadn't said something. Mm-hmm. So everything we teach, everything we do, it's not like, oh, hi, you never knew it or you didn't know it. It just means once the light bulb goes on, it just happens. It just goes faster and easier than if it hadn't happened.
Agreed. Nance and Denise says, this is my favorite show in all big capital letters. And then Denise, Val says, yes, I agree with Nilda and Denise.
Well, I'm glad we can be, you guys are masters too. So, it's, all these things, it's about how can I be happy? If I have an expectation that I have a chance to be happy, I'm going to have a loophole in that an expectation is not going to work for me. If I want everything to work for me and I'm going to have a lot of fun and I'm going to be good and I'm going to be ageless, you have a much better chance of manifesting that than through expectations.
Absolutely. No,
because the expectations are teamed up with ego and teamed up with everybody's negative, and positive, negative. This is the way it should be. So if you want to manifest anything, don't go to need, or, I shouldn't say don't, because when you say don't do it, people want to do it. I would suggest that you go to want. I want a really fun life, and I don't believe that God invented aging. I don't think it invented death. I don't think that God did this or the Spirit did that. I think dark did it so it could eat off of the human race. But that's just Nancy. That's just me. And so do I have to age? Yeah, probably. I'm going to be here and not here. But at the same time, I can be ageless. That doesn't mean I have to, go along with everybody's concept of aging. I don't, and I won't.
Yes. There's a gentleman I spoke to last week, and he says to me, I'm like, oh, we were talking about life experience and whatnot. And I don't even know. I didn't do the math on his age. I just know that he said to me, he goes, I don't care about the number that I'm assigned from the year that I was born. In my mind, I'm 28. So when people ask me how old I am, I say I'm 28 because I'm well aware that my body is listening to me. The cells in my body are listening to me.
Yep.
The people around me are acknowledging that. So every year I'm 28.
Do you have any, I'm sure you do, but I'm saying it this way on purpose. Do you know what these 5-year-olds, 12-year-olds, all these kids are doing they're as good as the adults doing the same thing? They're amazing. They're the new human.
Yeah.
And animals doing the same thing. The animals are looking and teaching us how to behave, and man's helping the animals, and animals helping each other. Then there are all different races of animals helping one another and loving one another, and there's all kinds of different things going on. We can't do all those old concepts are not real anymore. I mean, thank God. I mean, it's beautiful. It's a wonderful thing to watch. I'm sitting there going, oh my God, look at that child, man. It is so amazing. They're talking, they're doing things, they're way ahead of the game. They're the new human. The animals are teaching us how to behave, sometimes, we're teaching the animals that we can all coexist, and it's a beautiful thing that's happening.
I agree. Nilda says, I look forward to this time together. I've come home and I have found my community. And Denise says, please let Nancy know those resurrection angels are wonderful. And Val says, this is the tribe, Nilda. And Denise says, this is the three amigos.
It is amazing, the resurrection angels. And I'll never forget sitting on that Sunday morning when I was talking about it. I just read the how many, it's a big family of angels, and it sat beside me and it said, when are you going to use us, Nancy? When are you going to use us? People don't believe in us. They don't know that we're a whole whole family of angels that are here to bring things from the bottom to the top and the higher level. The only time that they really pay attention to resurrection is during Easter, and even then they don't believe it. They keep Jesus on the cross. Now, how much plainer does that get?
That's beautiful.
I know. I'm sitting there going, whoa, all righty. You got my attention.
Yes. So if anybody who's watching, there's a couple people over on Instagram, a couple here on YouTube. If anyone has any questions for Nancy or myself before we wrap up the podcast on expectations, now is your time.
Absolutely.
Yes. Do, 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 do. Hi, Mag. um, yeah, beautiful. I feel like we were so ready to go for this show, Nance. I had all these notes. So I was like, I'm ready. I think it's a beautiful thing when we love ourselves and we own ourselves. And then the magnet, our interior self brings the matches from the exterior to that interior belief. And I feel like
I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. I just feel so clear in two things. One, how self-love is a magnet, and the value of alignment, heart, when we're in the heart and the rest of our self agrees with no resistance, and what that is able to provide for us. And the second piece of that is you don't have to convince anyone. You speak your piece, you carry yourself, you have your values, and then you move on. You flow like water. I had these visions lately about flowing like water and delivering a message. I had this vision the other day about delivering a message, and then instead of trying to bring people to the message, or like leading a horse to water, it was give the message, wait 2 weeks, and set up a table with tea. And it was really interesting. There's a whole big story behind it, but that's like the gist of the message. And it was so interesting. It really showed me about letting divine time and the higher realms do what divine time and the higher realms do, and not having such a need to feel so personally responsible. And it was so nice.
Good.
Yeah.
I have an expectation.
Yeah, what's your expectation?
And if it changes and if it's not met and if it doesn't work out, then I will work every breath I have to obtain it.
Okay.
And that is to be loving, to be peaceful, to have love and heart, and use my heart chakra, and to be as kind. And it's not kindness as a expectation. It is a kindness because that's who I am.
That's a very nice expectation.
Well, if the ego has to agree with it, because it's going to happen to it anyway.
That's true. Okay, so Denise says, thank you, Teresa and Nancy. Love you all. Nilda says, thank you, Teresa and Nancy. Val says, light and love to one and all. This little light of mine, I'm going to let it shine. Blessings to you all.
Yay!
Yay!
I expect you to enjoy it.
Good expectations. I expect everyone to have a wonderful evening because you are so focused on love. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Well, thank you for joining us for another wonderful episode. It was an absolute pleasure to be with you here tonight, and we'll see you next Thursday.
Good night.
Good night, everyone.